Hi, 8th grade. I am so sad I can't be here with you today. This is actually one of my favorite lessons that we do teach just because there's lots of applications to your real life that you're actually going to see. Okay, so today is 6.10, normal distribution and standard deviation. So go ahead and take a second and write this down. Normal distribution is called a bell curve. So it is a curve that represents the distribution of data in lots of different situations, okay? Remember, you can pause along all of this as you need to, and you are going to need a calculator as you go through. So your phone calculator should work okay for this. You might just get some big numbers, have to turn it sideways. All right, so the couple of things that we need to have. So draw a picture of this, and you're going to have the bell curve, and in the middle is the X bar, which stands for the mean. Okay, so it has a line on the top, and we know that the mean is the same thing as the average. Well, if we work our way out just like a number line, you are increasing by 1 when you move to the right, and you're decreasing by 1 when you move to the left. Okay, so that is called the standard deviation. This area inside of here is actually called the standard deviation, and it's how far it moves. Okay, there are certain percentages that you are going to need to know. So again, make sure you have this written down. If this is you're going to want this in your notes. So you're going to have 34% in both of the middle ones. And then when you move on, it's going to go down to 13.5% from there. And finally, the smallest, well, not the smallest, but in between 2 and 3, or -2 and -3, you're going to have 2.35. And finally, we're going to go down to the very bottom, and this is going to be 0.15. Now make sure you take a second to pause the video and go over everything that you have and make sure you have these in your notes. You do have to draw this. Okay, so where are you going to see a bell curve? So anytime that you are talking about the normal population, this is what's called the standard deviation, and so it's the normal distribution of whatever is happening. So if we're talking about the sale of a car, and you have a certain car that goes for sale, most of that car is going to fall in the middle. Most of the areas where you find that car, the price range is going to fall right here. You are going to find some where the price range is really, really high, and you're going to find some where the price range is really, really low. This also goes for all of your test scores. Believe it or not, this actually works when you have a large enough group. So most of your test scores are going to fall within that certain range. Some of them are going to be really, really high, and some of them are going to be really, really low. And as a parent, once you do have your own kids, you're going to see this type of display with your children's academics. You can find your own, but it may not mean much to you now. And so it's where do you fall within that normal range of standard deviation. Most of the people would score this high on an IQ test, but there's going to be some super, super smart people and some people that struggle a little bit. So know that this is going to work for everything that has data, basically. All right. So you're going to draw, so this is the next on your chart. So I want you to go ahead and draw out a chart, and I want you to put the normal distribution with a mean of 100 and a standard deviation of 10. What that means is I'm going to start, my mean is going to always start in the middle, so that's 100. I'm going to add or subtract 10 from either side. So 110, 120, 130, and I can go all the way to 140. This should be then 90. 80, 70, and 60. Okay? So this is a data curve, and if the mean or the average is 100 and it moves up by a standard deviation of 10, we're going to find the percentage of data that falls between 80 and 20. So I'm looking in between here, and 120, sorry, and between here. Now remember those percentages that we wrote down earlier? What we need to do is add those percentages together. So this is going to be your 13.5, your 34, your 34, your 13.5. You're going to add those together, and you're going to end up with 95%. So that's 95% of the population is scoring right there in the middle. Okay, so then it goes on and says, all right, well, what about the percentage of the population that falls below 90? So this is going to be 90 and below. So again, I'm taking those scores that I have. So I'm going to take that down here in the 60. I've got that 0.15. I've got the 2.35, and I've got the 13.5. So I add those together to get 16%. So 16% are scoring below 90. Finally, you want to do in between 70 and 130. So I'm going to look at my 70 right here and my 130. Now I could add up all that's inside, or I could just subtract those end bars, which is the 0.15. So I could take 100 minus 0.15 minus 0.15. It's 99.7. So the majority of the world or the population that we're talking about is in here. And then we've got a couple extreme outliers. Okay, so it says that your firm has contract to make 1,000 staff uniforms for a fast food retailer. So you own a uniform business and they want you to make 1,000 of them. It says the heights and of the staff are normally distributed with a mean of 69 and a standard deviation of 2, which means, go ahead and draw this out, you're going to do 69 in the middle as my average, and then I'm going to increase or decrease by 2 every time. So then that would be 71, 73, 75, 77, that would be 67, 65, 63, and 61. Again, please pause the video to take your time to write this out. Okay, so then we have the standard deviation. They want to know what percentage will be shorter than 63 inches. So I look here, and then I just have to figure out that percentage. Well, that end percentage is just 0.15%. So less than 1% is what I have. So all you really need to do is make the chart and then use it so that you can read from the chart. Okay. So what I'd like you to do is you're going to try the rest of these with your shoulder partner. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 of these in your packet. You are going to go ahead and stay with your shoulder partner. You're going to worry about those. Pause the video, and then you're going to move on and work through the answers. Okay, I'm going to take a second to show you the answers. Again, pause if you need it. So this is just the first one and writing it out. So you add or subtract 17.5 on all of them. The second one, you should get 16% and 8 students if you fill that all out. On the third one, you should get 2.5% as you've filled this all out. We're going above the 2100. The next one, we had to go ahead and do our test score. Actually, its percentage of students is 0.15%, which is 0 students scored above the 80%. Okay, so the other thing we're talking about today is standard deviation. And that number that you add or subtract, how do you get that number? Again, not something we're tested over, but just a nice little information that you need to know. Write these down. Here are the steps. The first thing you're going to do is find the mean. You are then going to subtract the mean from each of the data points, okay? You are going to square that, and then you are going to add all of those squares together and divide by the number of amounts that you added up. That gives you, okay, what is called sigma squared. Once you then find the square root of that, that's the variance. Once you then find the square root of that, variance, you get your standard deviation. So I'm going to show you an example, and we are going to see what is working on here. So it says you and your friends are measuring height just of these dogs. All right, so we've got all these heights of different dogs, right? And so we're just taking the height from their back where they stand on the ground. And so you've got all these numbers, 600, 470, 170, 430, and 300. You find the mean. Add them all up, divide by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dogs, okay? So the first step you're going to do is just finding mean. Again, this is no notes. You're just following along with me for an example. I add those up. I divide by 5. I get 394. Done. Okay, so that is my mean. Once I have my mean, I am going to then find all of the variance. So here's calculate each dog's difference from the mean. So I am taking each dog's height, and I am subtracting 394. So I would take 600 minus 394. 470 minus 394. 170 minus 394. So I'm taking that each time. Okay, so that's what the difference is here. Here's their height difference in from the average. Okay, once I have done that, I end up with 206 would be the difference here to the first dog. I square that number. The second dog, the difference would be 76. I square that number. Now, even though this third dog is a little guy, That's a negative number. When I square it, it becomes positive. Okay, so you can see here, now that each of those numbers is squared, I get lots of really big numbers. I add them all together, and I divide by 5 because there are 5 dogs. That gives me 21,704. That is what's called the variance, okay? You have to take the variance, and then you have to do the square root of that to give you the standard deviation. So the standard deviation is 147. So that would be millimeters, sorry. And what you're going to do is that would be the difference. So the middle number is your mean, which we talked about. The mean was this green line. What was it? 394, I believe. And so we're going to take the mean in the middle, and then I would go up 147 each time or down 147 each time. That's how I solve it. Okay, we're not going to go ahead and do this today. We're going to skip over it. What I would like is you to look at the back page. Okay, we are going to take the height of 7 8th graders. So you are going to get some yardsticks out. Be nice. They are not swords. These are not weapons. Mrs. Ray is going to pick 7 people that are going to stand up, and you are going to find the height. You are then going to add them together and find the mean. And I would like to see if you guys can do this. I want to see if you can find the standard deviation. What I would measure in is I would actually measure in inches. Okay, so you're not putting feet, you're just going in total inches. There are yardsticks available for you. So try to work through this back page the best you guys can. Remember, the average is easy for you to find. That goes in the middle. To find the standard deviation, as a reminder, you have to take the average and you subtract it from each person's height. Okay? Once you have subtracted from each person's height, you then square that number. So if the average is 62 inches, but I'm 65 inches, it is 2. And 2 squared would then be 4. 4 is the number I add together, or whatever numbers I add together to get the total, and I divide by 7 because I have picked 7 people. Okay? Once I have 7 people, you can then find that is going to be your variance. Once you have the 7 people, that's going to be your variance. And then you can find the standard deviation by taking the square root of that number. Use a calculator. Okay? Once you have the square root, the standard deviation, you should easily be able to put it on your bell curve. Now, this is not something that you're tested on. This is not something that we're going to come back tomorrow and be like, oh, I get it. I want you to try and see how you can do. If you guys can't get it, that's okay. There is an IXL practice listed. There's also an exit ticket posted in Google Classroom for those of you that need extra help. Okay? It would be interesting for me to see the exit ticket and see if you guys have enough time to go ahead and go through that. The last thing that you have is the Chapter 6 review. That is your homework for tonight. This is going to be really important. So your chapter review starts up here, and it does say the Chapter 6 review. Notice that there are 28 questions, no questions over standard deviation, just stuff that we have been working on. This is your homework for tonight. You need to make sure this gets completed so that tomorrow I can have you rip off these last 2 pages. Okay, you are going to turn them in to me, and I will check them, hand them back to you so that you can make your corrections for your test on Friday. If you have any questions, please email me, and I hope that you were able to make this successful.